checking out this video. I haven't done the question box in a while. Not that there's not been questions. It's just that, I'm doing the Ferg's Thoughts podcast, which, if you're going to listen to that, it's going to be the same audio right here because I think that this question that was asked is so good. Plus, after the sermon and have a pretty busy life. And so, oh man, I didn't put it on a do not disturb. Hold up. We're going to do it right now while you are here. So anyways, I haven't been doing this lately, and my questions have kind of stacked up. I got about 4 or 5 right here. But I felt inspired to do this because somebody asked a really meaningful question. And since I'm not great at reading out loud, especially when it's something that's handwritten from someone else, I'm only going to read their question, but I want you to know there's a lot more context to this. And I'm going to try to include some of that in this video right now. This, and look how well written this is right here. I'm going to cover up the person's name so you can't see it. But it's really great handwriting. And I told this person I'd be doing this so they know who they are. But they basically said, my question to you is, why do you think there are not more stories about women in the Bible? Someone had to be holding it down while all these things happened, right? Why do these stories go untold? Now, I want to say this. I don't want to minimize the way the Bible works, and we'll talk about this in a second. But there are stories about women in the Bible. They're probably just not preached about as much by men like me. So I got 3 things about this question. Number 1 is the Bible was written in a chauvinistic time in history and in a patriarchal culture. So patriarchal just means relating to or characteristics of a system of society, government, or culture controlled by men. And, back then, that's just how it was. And so, honestly, when you're reading a really old document like the Bible, over 6,000 years old, you kind of got to know that the way that things were in that culture would dictate what is popularized in that text, or at least, the things that would have more of an emphasis on it. And so the Bible was written in a chauvinistic time when women did not have the same value as men. I wish that, they did. I mean, the women in the Bible definitely deserve that, but they did not have the same standing in society that men do. And there's a lot of stuff about that. In fact, in the comment section on this video and in the show notes of the podcast, I will put several books that I think are really, really good to explain this and about the place that women actually did have in the Bible. And so, without going into a lot of those details and making a 2-hour video, I just, know this. The Bible was written in a chauvinistic time when women didn't have the same value as men. And that's not cool. I get it. Don't cancel me. I'm just telling you about history. And also in a patriarchal culture in which men dominated everything. But here's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about the Bible, and it relates to more than just the subject of women in the Bible, is that the Bible, for its time, is super progressive. Now, I know that's a trigger word for a lot of my conservative friends, and anytime somebody says progressive, you automatically mute, whoever's talking, and you don't listen any more past that. But let me just say this. The Bible is not a conservative document. It's a very liberal one in the sense that it gave liberty to the people that it's concerning. So here's an example, right? And I guess we could tie in the women with this one as well. So in the book of Leviticus and Numbers, there's a lot of specific, examples and laws that were given to the children of Israel, the Israelites. And one of them, which I've always thought this was really crazy, um, I am definitely stealing this, but I've used it so much from other people, and it's in the Bible. You can read it for yourself. But there was this law that if you went to war with your enemies and you wanted to plunder their goods in the case that you won, for most of the cultures in the time when this law was written, if you won your enemies, you took everything that they had. It didn't matter. People, if they had kids, if they had wives, you could do whatever you want because you won. But God specifically told Israel, when you win your enemies, if you want to plunder their goods, you can take their goods and you can, do whatever you want with that. But if it's their wives, first of all, you have to give the wife time to grieve her husband. Then she's allowed to shave her head, which was a sign of mourning. And when you finally do take her, she gets full rights as a wife in your household, which meant back in those days, she couldn't be divorced without, a specific cause. She would be able to, have everything that any wife that you just maybe fell in love with or were arranged to marry, she'd get those same rights, even if she wasn't an Israelite. Now, for those who are listening and you're kind of progressive yourself, or at least you've grown up in our culture and society, you think that's really bad. That's regressive. Women aren't property. But for that time when it was written in a chauvinistic and a patriarchal culture around other pagan nations, that was super progressive. The way the Israelites would have heard that is, why? But God told them this is the way that you are to conduct yourself in a progressive way. See, a lot of times we think that what happens is that God is somehow like trying to pull us into perfection automatically. But what history would say is that the way that God works is that he enters into time and space right ahead of where we are at as people. So like, for instance, he doesn't enter into time and space when we are, undeveloped and we don't even, know about cars, and then just give us technology to make cars, but he just gently pulls us forward. Now, for those who are oppressed, like women are, and even today, that kind of sucks because you're waiting for what God is going to do, or you're like hoping that like there will be more respect given to you, which is deserved, or more rights or privilege or wage, equalization, which is deserved. But it's like, come on, God, this is going a little bit too slow. But God is a master at transformation. And one of the great things that we look at, as far as concerning the future with God, is that one day he's going to set everything right. And most of us, because we've been alive long enough, and most of my older friends will say, in his own time. And is it fair that, women are treated, unfairly? No, it's absolutely unfair. But I want you to know that if you were to want to read a progressive document that would be moving things in the right direction, the Bible is the right one. Now, this third thing I wanted to say is this. Well, actually, no, second thing, I'm sorry. The Bible is progressive and it showcases women. It doesn't hide women, it showcases them, which is a progressive thing. Like honestly, to say, like, I just wrote down a few examples because, again, I don't want this to be a 2-hour video, but Esther, who was a queen that saved the Israelites, Ruth, Deborah, the prophet in Judges. She was a leader. In the book of Acts, there talks about there's 4 unmarried daughters that were prophetesses. I always have a hard time saying that. But Mary, Martha, Myra. There's so many people. It's one of the crazy things is And I've talked about this before, and I know I'm going to get negative feedback about this because there's just a bunch of chauvinistic, patriarchal people who think that the Bible supports their position. But I mean, it's crazy. One of the most mentioned two people by Paul is uh, gosh, man, I can't remember their name right now, and I wrote it down, and I can't read my own handwriting. I think it's gosh, this is embarrassing. I swear, I have this perfect thing written right here, and I cannot remember the name. I'll put it in the comments. That's what I'll do. I'll put it in the comments. I'm not going to edit this. I'm not going to. It's live, anyways. I can't edit it. But you know, some of the two Paul's two of Paul's people that like helped him plant churches and were really responsible for the you know putting out the gospel and taking the good news to the Gentile people. Whenever he names them, except in one place, he names the wife first. And I'll put it in the comments. I'm so embarrassed I can't remember what that is. But I mean, the Bible is chock full of showcasing women as significant. In fact, I mean, most theologians and church historians believe that the support of Jesus' ministry was by women. The fact that he took his mother and all Mary and Martha and all the people that you read about, prostitutes, women that were caught in adultery, like the woman who was caught in adultery, the woman at the well, and she was a Samaritan, somebody that a religious Jew probably wouldn't talk to. It showcases them and shows them as significant people. So here's what I would say. When you read the Bible and it's concerning a woman, you got to be careful because it was the historical context and it was written in a chauvinistic, patriarchal system. So you're reading an old document that nobody's trying to change to make it seem better, but you're reading it in a time in which women weren't taken that serious. But the Bible still showcases them, so it shows that it is moving in the right direction from way back then up until now. The third thing I want to say is in Galatians 3:28, it says that in Christ, okay, there is neither slave nor free. I mean, like the difference of you being a slave, which is really regressive, right? It's talking about people who were treated as property. There's neither male nor female, Jew nor Gentile. I mean, it basically says that all human beings, women and men included, are created equal. And when God looks at us, we are equal. Now, I know what's going to happen. People are going to get ticked off at this video because they're saying that I'm not telling you the whole truth. But I'm just saying, Galatians 3:28, argue with the scripture, not me. There's no longer Jew or Gentile, slave or free, male or female, for we are all one in Christ. Meaning that Jesus, because of what he has done for us, he has taken away those silly societal identities. Now, are women different than men? Yes. Okay. And I'm not getting into all the other, cultural arguments right now about, people are born women or men or anything. That's not the point of this video. The point is that if you want to talk about the Bible is absolutely pro equality between men and women. Now, there are some obscure scriptures, and I don't mean they're obscure. I mean, they're just as obscure as what I just read right now, but there are scriptures that would seem to push in the other direction. But in my opinion, within context of historical, textual, or, just basically, in my opinion, the plain reading of the text, women are just as important and as successful and the same as men. We are all capable life forms that God's created, who he wants to have a relationship with. And in the letter, this is like one of the best questions I've ever got. She just talks about how there's not enough stories about redemption or great stories about women. And I do believe, like I said right now, within the text, there's plenty of stories about women who do some really awesome things. In fact, I don't ever think, I'm not sure. Yeah, there's no people in the Bible who aren't affected by women because even Jesus required a woman to be able to come into the world, and the mothers like Anna, Sarah, Rachel, all of the different people in the Bible, they are responsible and play key roles in raising the men who are supposedly, I guess looked at as more important. They all play key roles in doing that. So the question she asked right here about isn't there someone holding it down? That is absolutely implied in every story of the Bible. I get it. Within the church, we have a crisis that men are going through where, men are more likely to be drug addicts, commit suicide, not play their position that they were meant to play in church. But that doesn't mean, in order for us to actually be men and be biblical, that we have to put women down or minimize women's roles. Women are super important. In fact, dude, even like just the idea that went through my mind about sharing this story right now, it just wants to bring me to tears. But one of the biggest impacts that I've ever had in my life was from a woman. Her name was Lori Freedom. And that's a cool name, right? Like if your last name is Freedom, that's a cool name. But I found out after she passed away that she was in an abusive relationship with a man who was treating her badly. And when she got out of that relationship, she was married. When she got divorced, she changed her last name to Freedom. But she was one of the most amazing women in my life. But I had this really impactful situation with her. I was an associate pastor at the church she was at, and I was called to go and check on her because she was dying of cancer. And I went over there and I looked at her because she had always been so kind to me, always so loving, always so encouraging. And I just told her, I said, Lori, I don't know what to say. And Lori looked at me and she said, you don't have anything to say. It's all good. I'm going home to be with Jesus. And if you're going to sit here and be sad, you can just leave. I was like, like when you walk into a room and someone's dying, you don't know what to do. I mean, it's hard, even as a trained pastor, to be able to go deal with those things. And she was just like, hey, if you're going to sit here and be a downer about this, bounce. I mean, she was so filled with faith. I mean, she gave so much to the church, to everything that anybody ever did, and was always there tirelessly working. We named a building after her when she left. I mean, I can think of my mom. My mom literally praying and hoping and never giving up on her two sons or her two nieces or her grandkids or my dad or anybody like that, because she just believes that it's going to be okay and you have to tough it out and fight. My mother-in-law, always praying, always faithful, believes that patient endurance attains all things. I mean, I got to be honest, and I know this is probably something that I'll be criticized about, maybe even by my own friends. But as far as Christianity goes, women have had a bigger impact on me than men have. And maybe that makes you think something about me, and maybe it should, because it does differentiate maybe the way that I am. But still, I'm happy. I have strong faith and believe in, and actually I'm more dangerous than anybody who would have a problem with it. But women have impacted my life in such a huge way by being faithful that there's no way for me to emphasize it anymore. But anyways, here's the three things again. If you're struggling and feeling like the Bible doesn't give women the credit it's due, I would encourage you to please study it for yourself. Read some of these books that I will offer here at the end. But the Bible was written in a chauvinistic and a patriarchal culture. And so, of course, females are not going to have as prominent as a role as a male will. But it was written over 6,000 years ago, if you include the Old Testament and all that stuff. But women still get their due, maybe even not enough of their due, but they still get credit, and it progressively moves them up where they should be. It's just that right now we're living in a time in which the Bible's already been written and we're writing new stories. But I just want this person and every single female to know you are important. The church would die without you. In fact, let me just talk about one more person. My friend Tracy, who runs our Restoration Wednesday thing, she's one of the most tireless people I know. And my friend Ruth. Ruth comes before any male does, sets up communion, does coffee, sits and talks to people before church. I can't. I know, ladies. I wish I could mention all of your guys' names and make this a video that people would watch. But I mean, my wife. She's like the best children's worker I know. I mean, I don't know anybody who's got any type of the type of skills she has when it comes to children. My daughter. That's an important one to mention. My daughter has spiritual gifts that no man will ever have, and I don't mean in working with females and she's got her own little section or anything. She's like super spiritually gifted. She could walk up to a crying child, touch him on the arm, and he will stop. I mean, all I'm saying is that we as men need to be the type of people who recognize the quality and value that is added by the females in our lives. Or else, I'll just say it like this: you're not a man. If you're just a man because you're 18 years old, you have had the rite of passage of, being able to buy alcohol or smoke cigarettes or something like that, and you think the very fact that you're a male makes you better than women, then you're not a man. Men recognize the value of women in their lives. And I just want to say to all the, kind of sounds dumb, but to all the ladies out there that I know, thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your story. Thank you for the difference that you've made in the lives of all the countless people that you touch. Thank you to all my sisters. I mean my literal sisters-in-law. Thank you to all of the moms. I mean, thank you for what you guys do, because it matters. And God is so pleased with you. And I would say that God knows, just like I know, that without you guys, we'd fall apart. Hey, I love you guys. Hey, check out Ferg's Thoughts if you want to hear the audio version of this. Check out After the Sermon. Happens every Tuesday to go over last week's sermon, a couple days before it. Hey, and this has been the question box, which I want to do more often, and my questions have kind of piled up. Hey, but thank you for, watching, and, maybe you would share it or repost it or do something to help promote